mental health therapist, social activist, author. She's also forayed into politics. So we'll talk about all of that. But ma'am, we'll first start with the much talked about issue that is mental health. And in the recent times, it has been of great focus, especially I think after the COVID pandemic. There's a lot of talk around mental health. And even celebrities are talking very openly about it. People have taken to social media to talk about it. But as a mental health therapist, how do you, what are the challenges that you have discovered that women face the most in today's times?
First of all, hello everybody, thank you for being here. I'm especially thrilled to be here today talking about mental health because it is a big problem, not just in India but across the world, but it's a problem that we don't like talking about. If I were to have a quiz just across this room, we will see that there are many misconceptions which form a barrier between people getting timely help. For example, if I were to say that mental health is a problem that just afflicts the weak, how many of you would agree? Okay. This is a very enlightened audience because the usual consensus is mental health issues only afflict the weak. Whereas as a therapist, I know it takes incredible strength to come out and say, you know what, I'm struggling, I need help, and I need to address it. That is strength, according to me. Secondly, there's this perception that intelligent people can't have mental health issues. Again, that's false. Because mental health issues do not discriminate. You could be rich, poor, you could be a woman, you could be a man, you could be a PhD, or you could be a villager. It does not matter. When life gets rocky, sometimes you go through these lows, and that is when we call it a mental health challenge. There is also this misconception that somehow when teenagers have mental health issues, it is a hormonal thing. Teenager hai, hormonal spikes ho rahe hain, and therefore it's not important enough. And that's a great disservice. Because what happens is, yes, sometimes teenagers go through these hormonal issues and they're moody, but sometimes it is something more serious. And as parents, as teachers, as a society, we need to be able to acknowledge and address that. And finally, there is this, this judgment that comes with it. Somehow that, if a teenager has a problem, it's the bad parenting. That's a pity, actually, because bad parenting is just such a labeling, shaming kind of thing that it stops people from seeking help. We know for a fact that parenting is just one part of a person's journey. There is peer pressure. There is psychological issues that are inherent in a person. Yes. There is the social environment that the person lives in. There are biological factors. And by this one label, you kind of override all of the rest.
Stigma.
The stigma, yeah. And in fact, stigma is one of the biggest barriers for people to come and seek help. So we need to talk about this topic enough so that it is destigmatized. There is, of course, other barriers like cost. There is another barrier which is access to treatment. In all the BRICS countries, we have the least number of psychiatrists, and that's a travesty. On top of that, people don't like talking about mental health issues because they think it is overblowing an issue. नहीं, ये कोई बड़ी बात नहीं है. Depression क्या होता है? Go for a walk. दोस्तों से जाके मिल लो, and सब ठीक हो जाएगा. So this dismissive attitude not only isolates the person who's suffering, it also makes it look like it's not an important enough issue. Whereas the tragedy is that in this country today, we have more than 1 lakh suicides every year. 1 lakh suicides plus, okay? And even one suicide is a suicide too many. And a lot of it can be addressed.
Yes, and as you spoke about the stigma and the dismissive attitude, if you talk about women particularly, we've seen this happening quite a lot. And a woman is supposed to be having it all together. A woman has to balance everything. She cannot lose it, as we call it. And, when a woman will always hesitate mostly, especially if in our society or maybe across societies, to speak out and talk about that she's not really able to maintain this balance. She's getting affected mentally. But do you feel that it is more dismissive, the approach is more dismissive towards women's mental health? Like, it's very easy to call a woman who is not feeling right maybe a drama queen.
That's a very important question. So let me just segue back a little. In this country, women's health per se is not important enough. Okay? We send our sons or even our children to the doctor. We send our husbands, our mother-in-laws. But the woman in the house is last to go to the doctor when she is suffering. So we're talking about physical health. But health is not just physical. To be a healthy person, you also need to look after your mental well-being. So अगर आप physical health का एक ख्याल नहीं रख रहे, mental health तो दूर की बात है. Mental health issues, you're a drama queen, you're hormonal.
Yeah.
PMS हो रहा होगा. Something else must be
happening. That time of the month.
Yes, it's that time of the month. And what happens is, because the woman has been conditioned for so long to put herself last, mental health is the last thing on her mind. In fact, there's a lot of shame. You're supposed to put it all together. You're supposed to be the one under control. So don't create trouble, don't cause a fuss, and just move on. And this then causes so many other issues that come up with it, which show up in later life in very nasty ways. Depression among women. You know, there is, how many people here know exactly what depression is? We don't even know what the definition is, right? Each person in this room, if I were to go around, would have faced low moods at some point. You have the blues, you go through a bad phase, 1 week where you're sulking. And most people think depression is that. Unfortunately, depression is a lot of that at a magnified level. For instance, if you're feeling low, if you're demotivated, you don't feel like doing some of the things that you used to, if nothing that gave you joy earlier gives you joy anymore, if you start thinking about death a lot, if you start thinking about self-harm a lot, if you're sleeping too much or sleeping too little, if you're eating too much or eating too little, and this pattern continues for more than 2 weeks, then you're depressed. But the signs are so insidious, and we have been taught to put a brave face and pretend everything is okay, that by the time the women are diagnosed, often it is very late. What happens when there is a late diagnosis? Not just with mental health, but with physical health. It just makes the journey back to healing just that much longer and that much more painstaking, right? So this is depression. Then, you know, our mental health situation is such that our last comprehensive study happened in 2017. We don't have the latest data. But even the 2017 data says that about 14% of our population struggles with mental health issues. 14% is a lot, which means 1 out of 7 people is struggling in some way or the other. But are we seeing those numbers seeking help? No. These are hushed conversations that we have. And what are the big issues that have come up in the study? Top of the pops is depression. After that, there's anxiety, schizophrenia, eating disorders, bipolar disorders, and then so on. So I touched upon depression briefly, but I think it's also good to use this platform to talk about anxiety. Again, like depression is minimized as, you know, just a low mood, anxiety is, clubbed together with stress. All of us face stress at some point of time, right? You have a big presentation coming up, you feel stressed. Something big is happening in your home, you feel stressed. So how is that different from anxiety, do you think?
Yeah.
Stress is different from anxiety because when you're anxious, it is based on fear. And when your body's fear response gets triggered and your overriding factor is not able to tell you that this fear is not based on reality, then you get anxious. To give an example, let's say you're afraid of snakes. How many people in this audience are afraid of snakes or don't like snakes? Can I have a show of hands, please? So many hands. 50% of the audience, right? I don't like snakes too. So when you see a snake, your panic alarm goes off, right? And you run. That's a natural response. But what if that snake is in a zoo in a cage. Do you still run? No, because you know that although the panic button has gone off, your logical brain has overridden that panic button and said, okay, I don't like the snake, but I am safe because it's in a cage and it can't hurt me. In an anxiety situation, what happens is your panic button is going off, but the overriding function, the executive function of the brain is a little garbled. So it's not in a position to tell you that, hey, it's actually not that unsafe, which is why you have people, perfectly logical, fully functional human beings who sometimes go through panic attacks. And it's not a logical response. Yeah. It is the panic alarm which is going on full alert and your executive function of the brain not being active enough. You have OCD, where you repeatedly do something over and over again in an attempt to get some semblance of control over your life. Or you do rituals over and over again, or you wash hands, or you're panic-stricken about germs. So that is one form of anxiety. Then you have agoraphobia, which is the fear of crowds. If I go to the crowd, something bad will happen, and I might die. The logical brain, if it were to override this, would know that no, crowds may be uncomfortable, but it's not going to kill you. But when that executive conversation is not happening in your brain, then you panic. So this is just an overview to tell the audience that, we use words like anxiety and depression so casually. That's a disservice, because when we talk about clinical depression, when we talk about anxiety that cripples a human being, it is something much more than the layperson's terms. And unfortunately, social media has made it very cool to self-diagnose and say, मेरे को तो depression है, इसलिए I can't go to work, और मुझे तो बहुत anxiety है, and therefore I can't do this. And that's a pity.
Getting triggered very easily, using those words very loosely.
Correct.
Of course, so there are many women in the audience, and of course the men who have, their mothers, their sisters, their friends, who could actually, use some of your advice so as to, come forward and address these issues. You've told them how to identify. I think that was quite insightful. But if you could put out some piece of advice as to how they can come forward and, actually tackle those issues in a very smooth fashion and not getting very hesitant and, stigmatized rather.
Okay, so unlike a headache or a toothache or little, health issues, there is no magic bullet or a pill that I can give you to fix mental health issues. Mental health issues build up over time. There is a biological component, there is environmental factors, there are psychological factors which build up to mental health issues. But what you can do as a lay person is be aware of yourself. In today's chaotic, fast-paced world, what happens is we have lost touch with our own mind and our body. What do I mean? If I were to ask this room, when you left for this conclave in the morning, how many actually sat and savored your breakfast? Do you even remember what you ate for breakfast? Do you remember how it tasted? Do you remember what your partner wore? We are going through life in a blur, in a very automaton kind of way. So the first step in being in touch with yourself is to slow down a bit, and this is what we call mindfulness, right? The second thing is, are you looking after yourself physically? Are you exercising enough? Are you getting 8 hours of sleep? Are you hydrating enough? This is not rocket science. This is basics, and this is something you don't need a therapist for. This is something that you can do for yourself. So I'm going to take you through a few checklists, which I hope if you were able to even implement some of it, it will bring a transformation in your life. So sleep, hydration, nutrition. Are you exercising? Are you moving your bodies, or are you stuck in a desk job? Are you going for the health checks that you need to? Are you getting enough sunlight? Are you getting enough vitamin D? So this is the physical aspect. Emotionally, are you able to cope with the stressors that life throws up? Are you able to navigate through the little bumps that come along? When there is anger, when there is stress, when there is grief, do you completely unravel, or are you able to handle it effectively? Are you able to articulate your feelings, or are you bottling it up and then lashing out? Are you respecting yourself as an individual? Are you respecting your own boundaries? Then let's move on to the psychological part. Are you learning new things? Are you engaging in new activities? Are you making decisions that are wise? Are you taking responsibility for your action? Again, very simple things, but we don't think about that enough, right? And all this make up a part of your mental health. Then let's move on to the social aspect. Are you connecting with other human beings? I don't mean just online, offline. Are you meeting people? Are you connecting with individuals? Are you seeking support? Are you able to offer support? And most important, are you able to respect other human beings with different opinions? That is a part of your social makeup. Then as Indians, it comes naturally to us, but somewhere along the way, I guess because of the fast-paced life, we have sort of forgotten. Are you connecting with your environment? Are you taking time out to walk in the grass, to just soak in the sun, to watch the birds? Have you sat under the open sky and looked at the stars? And if you haven't, I urge you to take time out to do that, because we cannot live a life where we are divorced from nature. That is not our ethos. So please try and connect, and that is basic grounding. And finally, we are a land of the Kumbh. We are a land of the Sanatan. We are inherently spiritual, irrespective of which religion you follow. Most of us are anchored by something, a belief that is bigger than ourselves. Taking that forward, are you able to give back to society? Are you able to find meaning in life? Are you able to find purpose in what you're doing? If all these ticks are there, then your mental health should mota-moti be on track. And if some of these boxes are not ticked, then maybe you might want to think about it.
Well, I'm sure there are many people who have a lot to think about, but it's very articulately put, ma'am. But before we wrap up, I would want to know about your journey, because as I began by saying, you don so many hats, from being a mental health therapist, a social activist, working for the society. And, you come back from Singapore to India, and you volunteer for the BJP campaign. You make your foray into politics. So how do you marry the two? Because it, from being in this such a stark contrast. So how did this really happen, and how does it, both of these professions or domains, help you as an individual, as a professional?
Okay, that's a very big question. So it needs a lot of time, but I don't think we have that much time. So I'll shorten it as much as I can. So people think, I'm a mental health therapist, that's my passion, that's my profession, but I'm also a political activist for the BJP. And people somehow think that they're two very separate, divorced fields. Actually, all women wear multiple hats, and there is no conflict. We seamlessly move from one role to the other. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a political activist, and also I'm a therapist. There's no conflict. Sometimes, in fact, so my politics does not affect my therapy, okay? And that is, for me, I take it as a matter of pride, because I have clients from across the political spectrum. But when they walk into my clinic, the only thing I see is a human being with a set of issues, and my job, my dharma, is to address that. So I don't care if your religion is different, your ideology is different, I don't care about your gender. The only thing that matters to me is a person in pain. And somewhere, because it's a relationship of trust, I think somewhere it comes along. And so far, I haven't had clients leave me because of my political leanings. On the flip side, my therapy has helped me in my politics. And I'll tell you why. Right. So I'm something called a special invitee to the BJP, okay? I'm not your MLA, MP kind of politician. I'm a social activist. And the party once, for my first tour, they sent me to this state where I had never visited before. And I was told that there's a whole list of things that I have to do, meet certain kinds of people, visit certain kind of institutions, and I thought, okay, that was up my alley. But when I land up, I realized they'd organized a Baithak for me. A political Baithak is where your mandal workers, your booth workers, and other, players sit. And as we're going, already my tension is building up, because they said, ma'am, aapko Hindi mein bolna hai. Now, I'm Assamese. I speak Hindi, but to give bhashan is a different ball game. And also, I know nothing about that state. I know nothing about how the booth workers are working and what are the local challenges. So there was total panic. And as they're introducing me, my panic levels are growing. So I'm, okay, Smita, breathe in 6, hold 6, breathe out 8. So I'm doing that breathing exercise. But as I'm listening to the people talk and do the introductions, I said, okay, fine. I don't know the state. I don't know their field. But what I do know is how to communicate with people. And I know how to work with people because that's what my job is. So I said, okay, chuck the political hat, let the therapist take over. And I did that, and it was a fabulous engagement because I realized eventually people don't want yarn. They want somebody to communicate with, they want somebody to listen, they want somebody to share with. And that goes across professions. So that is where my therapist skill set comes into play.
Insights into the minds of politicians also could be helping you. in
Well, I haven't
deciding-
gone that far. I know how the Karyakartas work. That is my mandate.
Yes. Well, that was really an insightful conversation, ma'am. Thank you so much for your words of a lot of wisdom and knowledge. And I hope that many of us have, really been pushed to introspect when it comes to the issue of mental health. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so
joining
much
us
for
on
having
Public
me.
TV. It's a great
Bye-bye.
honor.